Firstly, thanks everybody for coming. This is such a beautiful day, and I really appreciate all the ex-village officials and all of you residents coming. Firstly, this is your meeting. We're not doing it to promote Naveen's idea. I have none. Whatever you choose should be done in this space. When I got elected trustee, John Barr called me, said, Naveen, you need to walk every inch of this space if you are going to be a trustee. He spent 5 hours with me, walking me every edge of this land that you see. And now you can close your eyes and imagine trucks going through here, or your kids or your grandkids or you walking through these tracks, connecting to the McDonald campus in your bike or on your feet. What do you want? You want this to be a parking lot? Or look at these beautiful spots here. This is our land. And we're not talking about Naveen's idea. Whatever you want will happen here. We will vote as per what you want. But the information, the process that we have gone through, the information that has been shared with us and with you is all false and cooked in the last 3 to 4 weeks. And I'll show you why. No problem. And I also want to give you options. We have options. So one of the key objectives for today is for you to understand that we have options. We should, as residents, evaluate those options, and then you should decide which option best works for Oak Brook. Not Naveen or Manzo or Ed or Suresh or someone sitting out there thinking, I love this idea, I'll get 4 votes because they voted for me together in a slate and I can get the votes and I'll get it through. That's not what we are here for. We have to look at it logically. So I want you to walk away with what are the options, what are the economics behind the options, and like I said, you can make any model work. There are 3 numbers that matter. And you can vary that numbers and I can have a different decision for you. And I'll show you how those numbers are being manipulated. So firstly, I think you all have a handout. If you don't, I will follow it through. But the first page of the handout is just kind of summarizing what you already heard. This is a beautiful piece of property, right? It's prairie land. All the trees, we got a grant, I think John Barr told me, and we got a grant for $400,000 to build walking paths, biking paths around it, clean up some of the dirt we had, and we made it approachable and for us to use as residents. We obviously have the advantage of the outside pool is that we don't have one in the park district, so there's no duplication there. Secondly, the only options you have is to go to Midwest Club or your own house or Lifetime Fitness. So yeah, there is value. One could think about, hey, there is an outside pool. There is value. Let's not just destroy it. Maybe think about it. These tennis courts, there are only 3 or 4 tennis courts like this that exist. One in Forest Park, one here, and I think there's one other location. But not a single location has tennis courts that are in the forest area, and people love to work here. I have met members who say they're a member of 3 clubs, but they want to play tennis here. So there is some beauty. There's a differentiation. It's our asset, right? We want to increase the value of our houses. The only way we can do that, increase the value of our assets, right? So we have all these beautiful assets, and we are not here, irrespective of what Manzo said, to add property tax or to destroy this. That's not the goal. Nobody's talking. And it's like, I watched that play last night, George Clooney play. Good night, goodbye. And it was very interesting. Ed Murrow was saying, using a fear tactic to drive your agenda is what this board is trying to do, or some people on the board is trying to do. They're making you fearful that if you don't do this, then you will have nothing. They're making you fearful that the only way you solve this problem is through property tax. These are all fear tactics. You are smart people. Please don't believe that. And I'll show you what the numbers are. So if you move on to the next page, when I started looking at, saying, let me look at the numbers, I'm a strategy guy, right? I was a partner with Accenture working on business strategy with Fortune 50 companies for 30 years. So I wanted to dissect as to what is the strategy we're building here? What is the concept? So I asked 3 questions. I said, what is the size and scope of these renovations that you are giving me these numbers for? And I didn't get an answer. So then I finally got a package. I think it was for the April 27 meeting where there was a page which says 20-year plan for Bath and Tennis and a 20-year capital plan for golf. So I opened that number and I started, and I think I have those details for you on the next page, but I started looking at saying, oh, we're going to build all these water slides with some splash pool for $1 million, splash pads that we're going to replace every 10 years for another $1 million or $950,000. So I said, we are not maintaining or fixing what we have. Somebody has created another vision of what we will have here. So I asked myself, who created that vision? Did the village, were you involved? Was there any referendum, or were we going to build a splash pad or fancy splash pad or additions to these slides and zero depth pool and all this stuff? That was in the capital budget, and that's how they got the number of $8.3 million just for the pool. Actually, the number is 9.4 over 20 years because the splash pad has to be replaced every 10 years. So if you average it out, it's a $9.4 million just for the pools. And so I started looking. I said, this is not about fixing what we have or making it viable. This is about somebody's vision, which nobody has approved. None of us has approved. So first thing I want you to remember, the choice that you have and I have and we all have together is to decide what is the scope of this project. Are we making what we have today viable and thriving, or are we going to build all these new bells and whistles? Because if that's what you want, then you want. That's fine. But that's what they're selling you without telling you they're doing that. The numbers kind of started to show that. Then the second clue they gave us was that Clarendon Hills is the benchmark. Oh, they spent $8 million for their pool. So I went to the Clarendon, I didn't know what Clarendon Hills is doing, so I went to their website. All the information is there. And you have one of your slides, you will see those fancy pool and the fancy water slides and all the stuff they're doing to spend about, I think they did an $8 million bond to do all this Lions Pool development, which is a huge development they're doing in the area. So is that what we are trying to replicate here? If we are, none of us were involved, not even the village board, not even the sports core committee. So then I went to the sports core committee, and many of them are here. They've never even heard of it. Leave aside advising or evaluating and assessing, they didn't even hear about it. On the April 8th meeting, Ed was in Korea and Japan, and I was in India taking care of my mom. And I had, every night, we were spending middle of the night to figure out why they want to pass this 30-year addendum without telling anyone. And then they changed course when they saw resistance from us. Oh, we want a discussion item. It was presented as a voting item on the agenda. So the process and these numbers are all being cooked in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So anyway, so the first thing we need to decide to come up with the right option is what is the scope. So my option says the scope is what we have today. We want to make this viable. We have to maintain it. This is our property. We can't let it go down. We can't destroy it. So my assumption is we want to take care of it, right? But my assumption is not that we're going to build the bells and whistles that somebody else's vision is. So when somebody says, hey, Naveen has an option, as some people put it on the Facebook, my option is saying we are going to take care of what we have. Fair enough? That's my option, right? All right. So now, once you have the option, then comes, okay, what does it take? So Naveen, if you want to maintain the pools and so on. So then there was another document, which none of these I had seen before. It is in the board package. It says 2016 study that was done to figure out how much we need to put in the reserve. What is the condition of each one of these assets within sports core, including the golf club? What is the useful life, and when do we expect it to replace it, and how much we need to put in the reserve to take care of it for the long term? So it's very interesting. I said, okay, we didn't put any money in the reserve, so whatever reason, I don't know, I was not on the board. But I said, in 2025, how much money should we have had per that study to take care of it? It was $2.6 million. So we are only $2.6 million behind. I raised my hand. We are $2.6 million behind. But the biggest spend of $4.3 million for that capital study was to come in 2029. So we still have And that was for $4.3 million. And after that, it does a 35, 40-year study. Nobody even, the people talk about it. And I said, how did you use these numbers in these numbers you're giving me? Can you connect the dots? How would you use the numbers? And when I looked at the capital plan, I could not see a single correlation of those numbers to what we have. So I said, okay, so you just cooked up another set of numbers that somebody put together. We're going to have a splash pads. We're going to have this. And you now made a 8.3 or 9.435 million over 20 years average. That's a capital investment. So that's a cooked up number. I call it a cooked up number because even the Sports Court Advisory Committee had not seen it. None of them had seen that number. And everybody is saying, oh, they approved it. They're members here. Go talk to them. Don't take my word, please. There are people here, so ask them. And we'll point them. They did not see these numbers. All right, so anyway, so we need to figure out how much we want to fix this, how much it's going to cost. So when I looked at the Capit 2016 study, I talked to many of the builders. Jim, when I got on the board, the idea was we all have different strengths. Ed is a master of contracts and law. I have no clue about that. I can't even look at a contract, figure out what's wrong. But I can look at the numbers. So Ed would say, Naveen, I'll take care of that. You look at this. We have Nagel on the board who's done a banquet business, who has done a lot of development. And when I was running for the trustee, Manzo and Larry were promoting, he was the best thing like sliced bread. And all of a sudden, he didn't even know any of these numbers existed. He was as equally surprised. So we have not consulted any of the strengths of the board members as we were doing it. So leave that aside. So I talked to many of them. I talked to the Sports Court Committee. I talked to many of the builders. And the number I've come up with, and which is supported by the 2016, is something like $5 to $7 million, not only for the pool, but also for the building. To take care of not to build a 340 wedding venue banquet. No. We're talking about fixing what we have and making it viable, right? Remember that. Never lose sight of what we're doing. So then I said, okay, we need $5 to $7 million. And I think that's actually a very aggressive number. We could even put that, because then I started looking at some of the details. In the 2016 study, it says that the windows and the big chunk of that building inside is windows, that we don't have to touch them till 2035. Till 2035. If you look at the pool, they will tell you that the mechanicals, the pumps and filters, they're in good shape. But the pool itself is not. I will come to that in a second. So what I'm saying is there is enough data point which says we are not just running all this thing down to the ground and rebuilding it to somebody else's vision. So $5 to $7 million I put as a thing saying we need to be ready for that. And their number compared to my 5 to 7 was $14 to $16 million. $14 to $16 million. So what I say is, okay, even if you don't believe the number, we need to have a process whereby we do the diligence and saying our vision is to fix this thing. Let's get 3 bids and 3 smart people. Yeah, we have to pay prevailing wages in the village. I understand that. Ed gave me a lesson on that one. But we still can get the right numbers, not somebody's cooked numbers. So I asked them, how did you come up with the building number? So the building itself, they came up with a number of $6.2 million for the locker room, the check-in room. They did $450 to $500 a square feet times the square feet. That's all. When you look at the 2016 study, it has a lot of the details. And then you ask yourself, I have windows that are in good shape. Yeah, there are a lot of things broken there. Let me figure out how much I really need to spend on that building. But it's not $6 million because I'm not building a 340 people wedding banquet facility here. So those numbers are funny numbers, not supported by anything. And there were 2 numbers that were given all during the last 3-4 weeks board packages. That's how we got it at Trustees. And the Sports Court Committee didn't even see it. Okay, please remember that. So then I said, okay, my number is 5 to 7. There is 14 to 16. Then I said, okay, what is the second decision we have to make? The second decision is how do we fund it? Whether it's 5 to 7 or whether it's 14 to 16, what are the different options? What are the financing options we have? And I said, we have three kinds of financing options. We can use the profits from the golf club. Let's see what it does to us. Let's do a simulation of using golf course profits. We make $600,000 a year right now, probably going to increase, and I'll talk about that in a second. Second is we can issue a bond if we needed to, or we could use what these guys are saying, give it to Chic Chef. I called it a public-private partnership. That was a new word I learned in the last meeting, so I'm using that. It's called a public-private partnership. So we could do that, right? That's a second decision, and I'll give you the economics around that in a second. And the third decision we have to make is the membership, ongoing operations. How do we manage that on an ongoing basis? Right now we have as of day before yesterday, the fresh numbers is we had 90 households, 90 households in Oak Brook who use this facility, 90. And we have 3,071 households to be exact. You can calculate the percent. So 90 is after all this growth that we're talking about. It used to be 63, now we become to 90. So we're using it. So I said, you know what, I was a strategy guy. I didn't come here to just do the same thing. I said, what are the creative options? Can we make it open to all the residents? Can we find a way? I don't know. So Manzo wrote to me, oh, Naveen wants a property tax. I think he doesn't even understand what a property tax is, but that's a different issue. I'm not asking for any property tax. I'm just answering a challenge if you give me, saying, Naveen, can you make it available to all of us? We own the land. What will it take? I will decide whether I want it or not. That's not Naveen's decision. That's yours. But I wanted to give you an answer for that. You need to know. And that's what I've been trying to do, and I'll give you the answers. So if the next two pages I'm not going to cover, it gives you all the bells and whistles. Their pricing is the next page that the village bells and whistles was. I'm giving you the benchmark they have on Clarendon Hills and some pictures around that. So you can see what we were comparing ourselves to. So you have a sense of how these numbers have been contrived and what they're saying. So now let's move on to the real stuff. So then I got a call from one of the trustees, I'm not going to take a name, and saying, Naveen, how many years will it take for us if we use golf profits to do this thing? What are some of the dynamics? And I think some of you guys who asked me this question are here. So in summary, when I said size and scope, my pool is 3 to 4 million, building is 2 to 3, total investment, I call it conservative renovation. That means what we have today. And the village is promoting a Chic Chef-based option to what I call as elaborate renovation. This is Naveen's words, you can change them, which is $14 to $16 million. So then I started looking at the capital funding options, which is the next page. If we use $600,000 in golf course profits, okay, which is kind of today, and I'll show you where that comes from, we would have, and if we take the money from, we have upwards of, I think, $80-90 million in different funds. You know, you all see the report. But if we borrow, let's say, $5 to $7 million from the village, if we borrow 5, it will take us 8.3 years to return it back to the village. So we can return it in 8.3 years. We can use the golf course, and after 8 years, 8.3 years, the village will become whole. I didn't add the interest. Some of the people say, oh, the village will add interest. We could do that. It'll just increase the number of years. But just the principle is very simple calculation. Take 5 million divided by 600,000 a year. I'm not even assuming an increase in gross profits. And if it's 7 million, it's about 11.6 years. So now, if you look at the elaborate with the Chic Chef, 14 to 16 million, they are basically they gave me a whole calculation which says they will generate $625,000 a year from Chic Chef. This is their pretty elaborate number. I mean, I didn't even question their numbers, I'll come to that in a second. But if I don't question anything, this is what they told me. We'll make $625,000 a year. So we're making the same amount of money practically as our golf course profit to give this 30-year beautiful facility to Chic Chef with the truck standing and our kids hearing the horn. We can decide that, but that's all we are getting from that. Then they said the Chic Chef pays for the building capital. What does the building capital mean? The locker rooms, the check-in area. That's it. We have to still take care of our pool and tennis court. There, Chic Chef has nothing to do with that. That's ours. He's only paying for the building, which is that $6 million portion of it, right? Which we can do it for $2 million. That's all he's doing. Nothing else. And we make $625,000. So if I only use Chic Chef revenues and take a loan from the village, we still have to take a loan because Chic Chef revenue is not going to give us enough money if my pool breaks. Well, we'll still have to borrow money from the village, even if we go with the Chic Chef deal. I have a 20-year spreadsheet. I built it, which will show you how much every year we will get from Chic Chef. Their numbers. I can send it to anyone who wants it. So we won't even have enough money from Chic Chef to pay if we get something to do. We'll still have to borrow. Anyway, if you use 625, obviously their estimate to do things is higher. It'll take 13 to 16 years. 13 years with a $14 million estimate and a 16 years for the $16 million. 13 to 16 years. Only Chic Chef revenue. So then this person called me and said, Naveen, you're not being fair. We also have our golf revenue to use along with the Chic Chef revenue. I said, man, I was only comparing golf versus Chic Chef because that's what the decision is. But for your edification, I'll put that also. So if you use both golf and Chic Chef revenue, you still need 6 to 8 years to pay off. So what are we, 2 years more of paying back? So the only thing, the decision here, guys, if you believe in these things, is two things. One, what is the accurate numbers? Because these guys are throwing scare tactics and blowing up the numbers. Two, are you willing to use your golf course profits to treat the sports core as one entity, which was the original vision, and to enjoy this for ourselves? That's the question. That's your choice. If you tell me, Naveen, no, I don't want to use golf course profits, that's fine. I'll vote according to what you tell me. It's not my choice. It's your choice. But don't give false information about we'll have to close the golf course or close all these things down. These are the real numbers. You have it. And I can send you the spreadsheet, no problem. So then I said, okay. Then when I was sharing these numbers for the village, they said, Naveen, you're making an assumption that the golf course will keep us making $600,000 a year. That was the challenge they were giving me. I said, understand, fair question. I said, we should be making more. We just, as a village board, and Ed is here, even Suresh is here, he can't talk, but he's here. We approved massive investments in our driving range with the expectation that we will make $200,000 to $250,000 more every year. We put covered bays and all this stuff we have done. Significant investments. So if I take 400,000 of today's golf profit this year, plus 200, 250, actually I get to more number. And then the third thing is, we made 400,000 this year after we spent $1.1 million in capital. $1.1 million in capital. And we gave 500,000 as allocation back to the village. Because, people spend time on the golf course and sports course, we have to pay for it. So after we paid for all the allocations, after we paid for $1.1 million of capital, we still made 400,000 this year without even taking account the driving range increase. Now, so I asked myself a question. Are we going to spend 1.1 million every year for golf course for the next 20 years? I'm assuming that right now, by the way. I assume the worst case. So we have never spent $1.1 million a year on a golf course. So then I went to the sports core committee members. I said, you are the masters of this. You need to help me. They showed me a page, which was actually for the next 5 years, our projection was something like the maximum amount of money we will be spending is something like $1.5 to $2.5 million on capital improvement. This was a sports core committee document which says, what is the next 5 year golf capital plan? Not Naveen's plan. That's what they gave me. So then I went to the village and I said, you are making a $25.3 million capital plan for next 20 years. This is what I got from the sports core committee. How did these numbers come about? When did this number come about? So that number was just created by the subcommittee in the last 3-4 weeks. And the sports core committee does not even know it exists. The advisory committee that we have as a village, as the residents, it does not exist. They have not seen it. And they're here. They will vouch for it. So I said, how did you come up with this number? Oh, we have Sean put together this number. They know the golf course. You know, the village employees are doing an amazing job. But the fear that works for Ed and I and Suresh and others also works for the village employees. They have the jobs on the line. I don't know how these numbers come about, but I can't take the numbers on their word. There's no basis of that. So I said, okay, fine. I'll put $1 million a year for capital spend, man. Let's just simulate a worst case scenario. Absolutely. Even with that, we still have more than 600,000 in profit. So the point I'm making is, we are not beggars and paupers here in Oak Brook. You didn't buy your houses here to become beggars and paupers from a chic chef, a guy who's doing it. If you want to consider yourself that, please go for it. But we have the money. We can take the loan from our funds without any issue with our pension liabilities or anything anybody tells you. We even have a $3 million reserve in our sports core fund right now. So, and we're not taking it money to waste. We're taking it money for your wishes if you want it. And we will pay it back through the golf course. What's wrong with that? Maybe I don't think straight, you guys do, but please let me know. But I can tell you that if you are willing to take your golf profits, borrow money from the village, you can pay it in 8 to 9 years and you'll be whole. Without getting any commercial guy building this thing for 30 years here. And so that's what I wanted to show you. And I have a page here which, Anne's daughter, Cici, helped me in this presentation. So I want to say thank you, Cici, for helping me for all this. But there's a page which says Golf Capital Plan shared with Sports Core Committee. That's the plan the Sports Core Committee has seen for the next 5 years. This is their document that they have seen. They haven't seen anything else. Those were inserted in the board package so that they can claim that we did. We shared it with everybody, right? So this is what the 5-year plan is. Is this right or wrong? I don't know. But we still assumed $1 million. So I said we have money. We have it's a fair assumption to say we have 600,000 in golf course profits. And I gave you the answers for that, right? So those are the options. So then I said there's another thing we need to think about. Now this is where the people are throwing stones at me. Naveen Jain is proposing a property tax. So maybe, in my world, you look up at challenges and ideas. And people can reject it, right? You have the right to reject it. I'm not here to make the thing. I'm here to represent you. So I said, okay, there are two models. Going forward, we can use today's membership model, which is what I told you. How many households are using it? 93, right? Out of 3,071, which is actually the census number of households we have. So what if we want to have 3,071 households free to say, hey, this is I can use it any day, any time. I just wanted to calculate that simulation. So the scenario options we have is, we can use today's model. The today's model, 90 households from Oak Brook and the rest from, I think, Elmhurst primarily, generate $655,900 for us. So the total revenue we generate through the Oak Brook Bath and Tennis is somewhere, and there also is a mystery. Somewhere it was 455,000, somewhere it's 655. I assume 655,900. So that's the total revenue we generate through Oak Brook Bath and Tennis, with only 93 resident and remaining from others. So I said, okay, if somehow as a village resident, I said we can find the 655,900, which I think is overblown, or whatever we need to run the operations, probably less than that, maintenance and things like that, then maybe we can find a different way to source it and make everybody a member, automatic member. You are a village, this is only your facility, you are a resident, only you can use it, nobody else. Now my property values will go up because people can only use this asset if they come here. Otherwise, right now, they can live anywhere and use this. Pay $300 a year, or whatever. So Gopal told me, Naveen, don't share that option because people will label you as a property tax guy. And that's what they're doing. I mean, go to Facebook. Manzo says Naveen wants a property tax, $233 a year. I'm not asking for any property tax, guys. If you don't want to be a member, fine. We will keep today's membership, but we still can fund it through a golf course. But if you want a different answer, then maybe we can do something else. So the reason I put that on the table is that these three things, what are we doing? How do we fund it? Do we want the existing membership style, or we want to make every resident a member? Will generate an option. The three things combined, and on the last page, I give you the 4 options we potentially have on the table. And this is the combination of these 3 factors. What is the scope? How do I fund it? And do we want the existing membership style, or we want every resident to be automatically be a member, right? Each of them combined generates, it's a permutation combination thing, right? It generates an option. So we have an option that we do the fix what we have, we fund it by the golf profits, but we will keep the current membership model. So we'll have 655, 900 keep coming from us, right? That's one option. The second option is we still fix what we have, we fund it by the golf profits, but we provide membership to all the residents. Make all resident members and no non-residents come in. It's an option, right? You say, Naveen, I don't like it, fine. The third option is we do a bond. We don't even borrow money from the village because accounting wise, it's easier to do a bond and then every village person gets charged. So I think there's some dynamics to the doing a bond versus borrowing. So that is what the third option is talking about. And the last option is what the village is proposing is for $625,000 a year, and then fixing some parts of this building, we give a 30-year deal and we mess up with this whole land that you and I and we all together own. So that's the main thing. The last thing I want to share with you is the process is very important. I have an item on the agenda now as a trustee initiative on Tuesday, and it says I want to discuss what is the approach and process we will use to evaluate all these options, to make sure we are collecting the right facts and data with the right people involved, and how we are going to make a decision, because I want you guys to make a decision, not on the village board with some people maybe having 4 votes or 3 votes or what, and we gamble with this beautiful land of ours. So I want this to be a referendum. I'll be very honest. You guys should decide. I want that the sports court committee, sports court committee, I feel for them. I genuinely feel for them because they have not even been working as the advisory committee. They are given the questions to ask. They are given the agenda to pursue. They're given the data that they have never seen. And they've been forced. And it's an artificial committee right now. Advisory committee. I want it to be a real committee that only the sports court committee members lead this process, not a single village person or any trustee. The 4 or 5, we have only 5 members left now because the term of other members is expired. They should drive this process. They should get the bids. They should define what we are doing. They should then advise us as a board. So my proposal would be, let's follow a process. Let's energize a sports court committee that we have, and let's make a decision through a referendum. And that's really what we are trying to drive for. No, I'm not talking about any property tax here. Just to be clear, Facebook is all over Naveen wanting a property tax. I'm not asking you for anything like that. I'm giving you options. You decide. Whatever you decide, that's the answer. So, any questions?
Our trustees really allow the referendum to go through with the right options presented. So the people in Oak Brook can really decide, make the right option.
That's a very fair question. So let me repeat the question and the question behind the question. So we had a referendum sometimes back, and I wasn't involved in that time. But that referendum, the question, the way it was asked, was really suggesting an answer itself. It was very badly framed. So there are 2 questions in your question. One is, how do we make sure we do a referendum, question 1. Secondly, how do we make sure that we frame the questions in that referendum with presenting the true options to our residents, right? Is that fair?
That is correct.
Hey, I have a question. how many trustees are in a favor of doing this? And who are not in a favor? I need a clear answer from you. Who are in a favor and who are not?
So, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, but here's my read. I have a sense,
you
right?
know, you have a
I have a
crystal
sense.
ball.
I have a sense.
You know
I
that.
know that there are 3 trustees who are definitely feel that we need a different option than Chic Chef option.
Okay, who
We
are
all
the four?
feel that we need to do that, and that's, I think Ed supports that.
Who are the four so we can pressure them not to go along with them and do the good thing for the community?
So the 3 I can tell you who have expressed me the support, Ed, he's standing here, and Jim Nagel. They have definitely said that we've been working together. The others, I don't know. We will find out. But I know Jim Nagel and Manzo and Larry are definitely.
So
I can answer your question. I always tell you what I think. It's like being in a family. When you raise children, you know, everybody wants your kid to be in the gifted class. Nobody wants the dumb kid. Everybody worries really hard about the dumb kid. But you learn as a parent, the smart kids need just as much direction and just as much love and care, because smart kids can go off in a bad direction sometimes too. And right now we've got an excellent board. We've got some of the smartest people I work with anywhere. And the really smart people that I think need a little extra encouragement here are Village President Larry Herman, Trustee Mike Manzo, Trustee Suresh Reddy, and Trustee Melissa Martin.
So
Melissa
we can carry him and put him in a swimming pool now?
No. It's not like that.
Let's do that.
Suresh is an evidence-based guy. That's why I love Oak Brook, because number one, it's easy to remember everybody, because you say, hello, doctor, 80% chance you're right. But the nice thing about doctors is they're fact-based, and they don't run from bad news. As I always enjoyed it with Gopal, I'd say you put the film up and you read it. That's what you got. And Suresh is a radiologist. And so a doctor should never be afraid to look exactly. The other side of it is, and I've said this is, in my opinion, this is trustee malpractice to go with the Chic Chef proposal, because a doctor has a duty, not only the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm, but a doctor has to be careful that they don't fail to diagnose what's going on. And we don't want a failure of diagnosis here. That's why I've made my easy to understand chart, because this is like a differential diagnosis of all the documents. That's why Naveen has done his diagnostics of all the data, and evidence-based people who are not trying to just put something over on somebody should be sensitive to facts that are presented clearly. So I have every hope that our intelligent trustees will react very well to these facts.